Welcome to the Leadership with Biana Kovic Show, and thank you for being with us. Our topic, leadership, focuses on leaders such as yourselves. We believe that leadership is a skill that can be learned through practice and awareness. It is our hope that our conversation will help you become more reflective when it comes to your own leadership practices and enable you to leave a positive legacy. Our very special guest is Ido Singer. Ido is an assistant women's basketball coach at the University of North Carolina, Greensboro. He's also the host of the One Last Thought podcast, a husband and a father of 3 incredible kids. Ido's passion for creating things is unmistakable. Through developing basketball skills, leadership, and interpersonal skills, as well as the creation of the One Last Thought podcast, Ido is all about leaving things better than when he found them. Ido, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Ido, I'm very excited to have you with us. You are the assistant women's basketball coach at University of North Carolina, Greensboro. And I was wondering if you can tell us a little bit, how did you start on that path and how did you become an assistant women's basketball coach?
So I was a basketball player ever since I can remember myself. I grew up in Israel, and at about 7 years old, I was introduced to basketball and started playing it, loved it. And at a certain time, after I was done with my professional career, I was fortunate enough to play professionally as well. I took a big break from it, focused on going to school and other things, just trying to find myself in a sense, and I couldn't get away from it. I felt like there was something pulling me back to it, somewhat of a calling or just the way I'm wired. And at the age of 30, I decided to make an entire pivot in what I thought I was going to do with my entire life and go right into coaching. And as soon as I found that journey, it was just as fulfilling as anything I've ever experienced in my life. I've been able to positively influence players from the age of middle school all the way through college and professionally. So I really just love using basketball to kind of trick people into learning life lessons. So that's in a nutshell how I ended up as a coach. How I ended up in Greensboro is a masterclass in how networking, and more specifically, networking without the expectation of getting anything in return, actually gives you everything in return. In a nutshell, it was a 12-year-old relationship that I had with a person I met on Facebook, and we ended up staying in touch. And when her journey aligned her with an opportunity to help me, she did that without even me knowing about it. So I got an opportunity to come here and interview for my head coach last year, and it's been a great working relationship ever since and a great networking lesson.
You know, I interviewed a lot of folks, and some folks say that networking is a way of life, and obviously in your case helped you out a lot. Why do you think it helps leaders to really network?
Because if a leader thinks that all of the knowledge and all of the access that they'll ever need is within them, then they're not going to be an effective leader, and they're not going to be in their current position for a really long time. The greatest leaders understand their shortcomings, and they hire people that will help them bring those shortcomings up. Someone in my profession once said that he, as a head coach, was the dumbest person in a room every time they sit down for a staff meeting, and that's the way he likes it. So I think there's a lot of power in that. And I think if you network and if you try and reach out to people that you truly believe that you can learn from, then you have enriched your knowledge base. You have enriched your ability to connect with other audiences. You have enriched your ability to give a better message to the people that work for you and to the people that you serve. There is no downside to networking.
And how do you network and are not promoting what you do?
I think you have to come to the terms that you're not going to get anything out of it. I think if that's your mindset, and if you truly want to get to know people and be interested in what they're doing and not really expect anything out of it, I think you're going to get more out of it than people who have an agenda when they go into the networking arena. You can really sense when somebody's trying to get something out of you. But if somebody's interested in what you do, genuinely interested, asking questions, saying, hey, I just want to learn. I love your path. I've read about your journey. I think there's so much for me to learn from you. Would you spend 5 minutes answering 2 of my questions? And if somebody says no to that, that's fine. You can go on to the next person on the list. There's a lot of people that will say yes. But if they say yes, then you've just gained years of experience, and you can learn from all of their mistakes without having to make the mistakes yourself. So there's no downside.
And it seems to me being open and staying curious to find out.
Absolutely. You don't know what you don't know. And when you reach out to somebody, you're going to gain some knowledge. If you want to listen, if you want to take in the lesson, that's on you. But there's so much out there that you don't know and that I don't know. And it's out there for us if we want to explore it. We just need to reach out.
You know, you coach a women basketball team. And when I think coaching, I think about leadership. What do you think are the most important part of leadership that will get you to be a very good leader?
What I'm learning every day is leadership isn't what you see in movies. It's not that the halftime speech that gets you all worked up and ready to go and overcome a 20-point deficit to win the game with the buzzer. Leadership is in the details. Leadership is listening to the people that wear the jerseys, listening to the people that are in the suits, listening to what they need and trying to intentionally help them and get what they need. If we listen to the people, we're good leaders. If we're empathetic and we have compassion, I think that makes for a good leader too. So trying to put yourself in their shoes. Why are they doing the things that they do? Why should they listen to you? Do you know them? Do you know what makes them tick? Do you know things about their family? How close are you with them outside of what they help you do as a leader? So I think a lot of empathy, compassion, and listening makes really good leaders.
And when you get all this feedback, obviously, sometimes you have to be the one to decide the direction. How can one sort of take on all this feedback, but then at the same time, give the direction to folks without making anyone uncomfortable?
I think it's the relationships that you build with people. Somebody that I respect once said that his biggest mistakes was, I told them how it is before I earned their trust. So you can't be overly candid. You can't be too direct with people until they know you really care about them. Being a leader is hard. You have to make big decisions all the time. And those decisions affect many people. My head coach sitting in her office has to make decisions every day that will affect not only herself, but me. And then when it affects me, it affects my family. It affects my wife, my kids, my dog. And then it goes over to the team. It affects 20 other people under us, the staff, and then it affects their families. There's so much gravity to every decision a leader has to make. But I think if you've created good relationships, it's easier to deliver the bad news or maybe more of the truth than it would if you didn't have good relationships with the people. And at the same time, I think leaders have to make sure that they are always aligned with their core values. And if every decision is derived from their core values and beliefs, and then peppered with the relationships that they have with the people that they work with, I think you're going to reach conclusions and make decisions and go into actions that are not just random based on how you're feeling today, but they're always aligned with your core values. You're always thinking about the people that you're going to affect, and you have the relationships to deliver that message. And I think when you do that, it's a much more effective way to do it, and I think it's more successful.
And you know, sometimes our core values might not be aligned with the organization core values or even the direction that we are given to take. What are your thoughts on that?
Find a better job or a different job. I've been in situations where I disagreed with the core values of the organization, and I'm not there anymore. It's not a clean-cut thing to say you have to have your core values aligned with everything that you're doing. If you're not in a position to have your core values aligned with the general mission of your organization, then maybe you should reconsider where you're at. Maybe you should reconsider where you're driving to every morning, because you might be spending some of the best years of your life on a mission that you don't align with. So I think good leaders, they self-audit. Am I doing what I believe? Am I in a position to actually affect the people that I want to affect? And am I sending the right message out there? Is it aligned with my core values? I've been let go of a job because I was fighting for my core values. It did not align with my employee at the time. And we kept butting heads, and it wasn't the right fit, but I wasn't budging. I didn't believe in a few of the things that were asked of me to do, and it just wasn't the right fit. So you have to find a fit.
And what about the folks that say, hey, let's compromise?
Yeah, there's compromises that are made hundreds of times a day. You definitely make compromises. I just feel that some things you can compromise on, some things are a little bit more difficult to compromise on. If I really challenged your core beliefs and core values on a daily basis, are you willing to compromise those every day? I think you should compromise. I mean, the world is a place where we see things in different ways, and I think that's a beautiful thing about this world. That's how we grow. But there's a line to compromise. You know, pick your battles. What are you willing to lose your job over? Those are probably your core values. So,
And at the end of the day, like, can you actually afford to lose the job?
yeah, I can tell you I couldn't afford to. It was really rough. But sometimes you have to make a tough decision. And I'm a firm believer that the universe will provide for you when you stay true to who you are and what you believe in. It might take a little bit of time, like it did in my case. I had to sit at home for 9 months after that. But I think I gained in other ways. We have twin daughters and a young boy. So when the girls were born, that was right after I was let go of that job. And that wasn't easy. But on the positive side of that, I got to spend the first 9 months at home with my kids. So yeah, there's a lot of struggle there, and it's not easy to do financially sometimes to walk away from a job, but sometimes it's necessary, I feel. So
yeah, and I spoke to a lot of other leaders who actually mentioned that it can actually impact your health. So you do have to sort of weigh in and say, hey, which one is, I guess, worse?
yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we only get one life. How do we want to use our time? Do we want to fight with our bosses? Do we want to fight with our employers? Or do we want to spend that time trying to elevate other people and make an impact the way we think we need to?
So I'm just going to go back to you being a women basketball coach. I would be curious to know, is there a difference how you coach male team versus, women team? Or you're using the same principles?
I believe basketball is basketball. I believe people are people. I think if you employ empathy and respect to the people that you deal with, you're going to get good results. I think there are nuances in how you can train female college athletes versus male college athletes. An example I like to use is I believe that guys like to play well to feel good and girls like to feel good to play well. So it's different. You have to train the psyche of women a little bit more because I think that's how you get the most out of them. I feel that if they feel cared for and respected and loved, I think you can get more out of them as people and as players. With guys, it's a little bit different. I think guys tend to want to be pushed a little bit more. It's different. Looking at 2019, mental health is such a big thing, especially in college athletics. There's a lot of studies about that, and there's a big focus on it right now. And I think on both sides, male and female, there's a big cover-up on the student-athlete side in terms of how they deal with their own mental health. And they don't want to be perceived as weak, and they don't want the stigma that is still attached to it. So I think making them feel good and loved and respected is universally true for male and female. I just think that there's a nuance in how you train them. I think with women, it's more of a personal connection. With men, it's more of a performance-based connection. They need to really see improvements right away. And women, I feel, can be a little bit more patient when it comes to that.
And talking about a mental health piece, how do you help your team work with the daily pressure or daily expectations that they have?
That's something we're all trying to figure out right now. It's a trial and error kind of thing. For me, what I try and always remind them is what I try and remind myself every day, is that you can only control so much, and that if you put in the work through the process and however long it takes, you're going to see results. So if you're not too attached to results right away as a barometer of how well you're doing, you're going to do well in the long run. So if you kind of take away results as being the immediate feedback of success versus failure, and you view it as a process of getting better, then I think you take away a lot of the stress that comes with missing a shot or not making the right play. If you're looking at it as, I have 40 minutes as a team to accomplish a goal, then your one mistake in the first quarter isn't as big as you might feel in the moment. So you're trying to take away the power of one mistake. But it's a hard question to answer. We don't have it figured out yet.
And especially I can assume with family and everyone being so invested in performance.
Yeah, I think a lot of it starts in the recruiting process for these student athletes. And some of them want to go to places where they probably shouldn't go to, whether or not it's their skill level or it's the general fit. Maybe they say they want to be far away from home, but when they actually get on campus and they go through their first semester and they're more isolated than they thought they would be, then that changes. So there are so many different factors: proximity to home, how many friends you have, who these friends are, what your schedule is like, how you're able to balance your school life and your athletic life. what other relationships you might have on campus. Do you have good relationships with your professors, with the staff on the team, with your peers? Do you have people surrounding you that are negative people, maybe, that are affecting you negatively? Or does your roommate have a couple of questionable friends that keep coming in every night and play loud music at night, and you can't sleep, and then you can't go to class the way you wanted to? There's so many things that are happening there. So I think trying to make the best decision before you actually get to campus is paramount to your success. So the work starts a lot earlier than some students think. It doesn't start when you're on campus. It starts when you're making your decision. You can annihilate a lot of the stressors right there.
And I assume once you're on the campus, being able to assess and correct and bring that balance back, right? Or create balance.
Absolutely.
If possible.
That's why relationships are so important. Do you have a good relationship with your staff where you feel comfortable coming in and saying, hey, I'm struggling here and this is what I need? Can you build a good relationship with your teammates? Because they're with you right there. They know exactly what you're going through. And do you have a good enough relationship with yourself to say, I need help and this is what I need and I need it now? Or do you hide everything because you're prideful or because you're scared of a stigma? So that's a really tough one.
So then would you say that really good leaders are highly in tune with what kind of relationship they have?
Yeah, you have to build the relationships. You have to come from a place of genuine interest in the people that you're surrounded with every day. And this takes time. Another leader that I follow, his name is Kevin Eastman. He was an NBA assistant coach, and he's a speaker now. And he always says, big eyes, big ears, small mouth. That's a really good way for leaders to get better. Just observe everything, take everything in, ask questions, and listen with the intent to understand, not with the intent to reply.
And it's funny because one of my questions that I wanted to ask you is how do you stay humble? But it seems to me that in order to listen and not reply, you have to be humble, right?
Absolutely. Again, I think it goes back to big eyes, big ears, small mouth.
So I'd like to segue and talk a little bit about your podcast, One Last Thought, and I believe it's going to be released in July.
Yes.
And I was wondering if you can tell us a little bit more about it.
Sure. So it's a beautiful segue because I was just saying big eyes, big ears, small mouth. So on this podcast, I only introduce the guests and I do the closing remarks. And what I want to do with this podcast is I want to provide a stage for different leaders from all walks of life, whether you're a TEDx speaker or you own an ice cream shop. It doesn't really matter. If you have a good message, I want you to share it. And the premise of the podcast is, can you answer one question? And the question is, if there is one life lesson that you would want to impart on the next generation, what would that be? And what I do is I'll just ask that question prematurely. I ask people to record the answer and send it to me. And it's just 2 to 3 minutes of a stream of consciousness of what is that one life lesson or what is that one experience that really shaped you that you wish you could give to the next generation so that they live by it. And I take that and if you're talking about positivity, and another person is talking about positivity, I take these two replies and the sound bites that I get from them, and I mesh them up together so that these two people are having a conversation about the same topic. I feel that the attention span these days isn't really that long, and I wanted to keep the podcast to 5 to 6 minutes. So you come in, you get a 5-minute message about positivity or leadership or just a life lesson, and you walk out of it hopefully with something powerful you can take with you, something actionable you can take with you, and just have it as your one thought. So that's it.
That sounds very exciting. And if I were to ask you, what was that one lesson or one experience that shaped your life, what would you tell us?
I would say always remember where you come from. In my office, there's a laminated picture. It's a printout that I laminated of the basketball court that was right outside of my house where I grew up. And it's the only copy of the picture that I could find online. The basketball court has since been destroyed. So this could literally be the only picture in existence in the universe that meant so much to me. And the reason why I have it up in my office is I'm a Division I assistant coach. And with that comes the fake aura that a lot of people walk with in my position, where they feel like they've made it. And I always want to remember that I'm still this 8-year-old kid that used to get back home from school, eat as fast as they could, do homework as fast as they could, and just get out there for hours and just shoot the ball and dream about making it to the NBA and dream about using basketball for something big. So every day that I walk into my office, it humbles me. It makes me work hard because I know where I came from and I know where I want to go. And I think when I get to where I want to be, in terms of my career, in terms of how I want my family to see me, in terms of what I leave behind, I'm always going to remember that basketball court because that was the place that molded me. It molded my work ethic. It molded my views on the world, and it made me who I am today. So I would say my one last thought is always remember where you come from and always respect where you come from.
And it seems like when you do that, it keeps you grounded, it keeps you connected to your dream, and then
Absolutely.
it kind of brings you back to your core.
Absolutely. It keeps you grounded. Grounded is a very good choice of words you had there because it does keep you grounded. It makes you humble. It makes you hungry because you know where you were, you know where you are right now, and you know everything slips. Life can flip it on you really quickly.
And when the life slips, what suggestion do you have for folks? Because obviously we all experience setbacks. I experience, many setbacks.
Mm-hmm.
So what are your suggestions for people? How can they stay grounded and move past those setbacks?
Okay, so here's a lesson that I just learned a couple of weeks ago. So I took my daughter on a little scooter ride and we fell down and she scraped her knee really good. And she's 4.5 years old, so it's a big deal. That was a scary fall for her, for sure. But she got up and we took care of the bleeding. And a week and a half later, she's almost fine. And my question is, we fall down, we get hit really hard. Do we stay down or do we get up? Do we clean ourselves up or do we sit there for months on end looking at our wounds and just letting everything bleed out? And as painful as it is, and sometimes the recovery from all these falls can be very, very, very painful, we move on. We try and dust ourselves off. We try and get back on the horse and keep going. And whatever motivations we have in life, be it family or a vision that we have for ourselves, our goals, whatever it is, as soon as you fall down, you got to go right back to that. And that's what's going to pick you up. And that's what's going to keep you moving forward. We all bounce back. We just have to believe in that. We have to believe that it's around the corner. Yeah, we just had a little setback. A setback is a setup for your next comeback, right? So that's it. It's just a setback. It doesn't keep us down. We get up, we clean that big knee scrape, we put a Band-Aid on it, we draw a little smiley face to make us feel good, and we keep going.
And always think about the future and the next play.
Absolutely. There's so much time on this planet. I'm turning 40 in August, and I'm barely at halftime of my life. That's how I feel. I feel so young. I want to jump. I want to take 3 steps at a time. I feel great. It's all in our mind. Can we get up? Can we stay positive? Can we move on?
And don't allow the circumstance define you, right?
Absolutely not. No, it's all in our heads. Circumstances are interpretation of what's happening. I listen to a lot of Gary Vee, and he says, if anybody that ever looked like you has made it or made it to the definition of what you believe made it is, then what's your excuse? It's so powerful.
So then what is your definition of success?
My definition of success is the peace of mind that comes with knowing that you've done everything that you can control to get a positive outcome. Like I said before, you can't control everything. You can try and do your best, and it just won't work. But if you can go to sleep at night and look in the mirror and say, I have done everything, and I've done that from a place of love and a place of understanding and appreciation for what my why is or what my main core values are, then you can go to sleep feeling good about it. And that to me is success. Success is just having that ability to look at yourself in the mirror and say, I have tried everything that I could control to make sure that this is pleasant, that this is positive, that this is successful. And that's really all you can control. Otherwise, you're just going to frustrate yourself.
Interesting. So be fully aligned with yourself.
As much as you can. And that comes from the self-audit thing. You have to do it all the time. And if you can't self-audit honestly, then find somebody that's close to you, that knows you really well, and ask them who you are, and they'll tell you.
And any thoughts on generosity in leadership?
Yeah, I think generosity is leadership. You have to bring people up with you. So I told you a little bit, the little story of how I got hired here. So I'll kind of share a little bit more of that. This is a story about generosity in leadership. Basketball coaching profession is one of the most ruthless ones in the market because if you think about job openings, there are job openings in basketball all the time, but they're not really openings because if it's an assistant coaching opening, the head coach already has a short list of who they want to bring in to hire. So there could be an opening, there could be 500 people qualified for that opening, probably about 1,000 if you're being honest. But the short list is of 5 people and none of the 1,000 people are going to get that job. So jobs are at such a premium at this profession that anybody that has a job is really protective of it, and I understand. And that kind of breeds a whole culture of not sharing. And this person, she had a job, and the person who hired me here was reaching out to her because they know each other. And she asked her if she had anybody in mind that she thinks would be a good candidate for this opening that my employer had. And she said my name. And that is generosity and leadership 101 to me. Being in a position to better someone else's life and actually taking a step to do it. I think I wrote down when I was very, very frustrated with the whole hiring process when I wasn't finding a job. I wrote down that if you're in a position to help someone and you don't do it, you are cheating yourself out of the position you were put in. And I think that's powerful because we have so many opportunities to bring someone up with us, and sometimes we don't take them. And I think that's missing a big opportunity to spread so much positivity. Sometimes it doesn't take much. Sometimes it's just a good word. Sometimes it's just a, hey, how are you doing today? Generosity, you said it. It's big.
And what is your mission in life?
My mission in life is to create. It works perfectly with everything that I'm doing right now. I create better basketball players through developing their skills. I create better people through being there and modeling my style of leadership and what kind of person I am. I'm a family man. I love my family. I try and put people first with almost every decision that I make. And so I model that. And then with the podcast, I'm trying to create a platform for people to gain something positive every day by listening to other people's ideas and experiences and thoughts. So my biggest mission in life is to create, and it's creating something positive every day, and I feel good about it.
Any final thoughts?
No, I really think this was a powerful conversation, and I can't wait to share that with other people. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you so much, Ido. And how can people contact you, learn more about your podcast?
Sure. For the podcast, you can find me on social media at One Last Thought. So that's number one, Last Thought Pod. If you want to email me, you can email me at onelastthought@gmail.com. In terms of basketball, you can find me on the UNCG women's basketball website if you wanted to reach out to me for anything like that, or if you just wanted to chat. I'm available anytime you want.
Well, thank you so much again for being a guest.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on your podcast. Thank you.
Our special guest was Ido Singer, assistant women's basketball coach at UNCG and the host of the Last Thought podcast. Thank you for tuning in and listening to the Leadership with Biana Kovic Show. Remember that you're all leaders in your own rights, and the impact that you're meant to achieve starts with small acts of kindness, curiosity, and generosity. Please give us a like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you again, and until next time.